Right? And I'm not playing no games. Yeah.
And Pops, all right, you content creators will get this, but sometimes you earmark a story and you never get to it, right? And I thought, well, I'm going to be on vacation, so I'm going to do a video that can drop while I'm gone, so that you guys have something interesting to maybe think about or enjoy or look at or say, hey, Pops, you're freaking crazy. I hope you're better off in 2023, whatever it is, right? This is an article from July. It's from the summer. This is Sage Ashford over at the CBR, and it's called 10 90s Tropes We're Glad Are Gone. The 90s comics were often a mixed bag, and while they were great stories, there were also some problematic tropes. Yes, think problematic. It's always a red flag when they use terms like problematic. Okay, so look, I'm biased. I've told you I'm biased. This is my Nexus era, right? So the late 80s and the 90s, which is like the pinnacle of I fell in love with comic books, reading it as a medium, as an art, as an escape. It coincided with me being in college. It sort of expanded into like a little side business for me to get me during college. And then I've been a collector basically ever since. I've been an investor. I've been, doing some sort of avenue with this pretty much the whole time. There's been peaks and valleys, of course. Life gets in the way. You have kids, job changes, things like that. But I'm a little biased, and I kind of saw this. I'm like, what the heck? So let me give you an example. All right, first up on their list is every important comic cover. Now, ask yourself, has that really stopped? Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, it has stopped, because now almost a gimmick cover. See, we don't call it a gimmick cover anymore. Now we call them variant covers with change and virgin covers. And okay, sure, they're cool. But you know what? Some of us like the gimmick covers of the 90s too, right? We really did, right? It talks about how the marketing has to do with the stories not necessarily being good. I'm like, yeah. Quote, getting rid of those ugly chromium covers was for the best. You know what, dude? I totally disagree. Some of those chromium covers are pretty freaking cool, and I wish we had more of them and not some of the tripe that we get now. 90s characters were obsessed with guns and knives. Do I need to really say anything? Like, I don't know anything about the author. I don't want to even pull that up. I don't even want to go down that road. Because I don't know how old they are. Like, yeah, okay. Let's just keep going. The constant need to create hip creators. Oh, I see. So you're going to find the worst examples of the 90s to use against us. Like, here's Speedball in the front. Got it. Okay. Gotcha. No, now we create hip characters and try to pass them off as being important or actual replacement of legacy characters. Right? You see what you're picking up, what I'm throwing down here? Okay. The 90s had edgy names that sound ridiculous now. Okay. This is probably one that is unfairly attributed to the 90s, where variations of, quote, everything had some variation of gun, blade, war, or blood. Okay, fair enough. But again, he even contradicts himself by saying, Iron Man, Marvel was very on point, right? It's like Spider Dude, Spider-Man, that's why they created Spider-Woman, and they had all these variations, whatever. So, okay, yes, we went through a phase where they tried, different versions of, Bloodspot and, something Blade, and fair enough, right? But there's also dopey on the nose names now. Like, I don't understand the point. Like, this is actually not a 90s thing. This is just a thing. Women characters were frequently used for blatant fan service. By fan service, and okay, let's read this. It says, from the moment the comics code had started easing up on what could and couldn't be shown, major comics companies felt more comfortable with fan service, where women in comics were often once worn clothing that loosely fit over their figures. Everyone's costume suddenly became skin tight. Not suddenly, by the way. It definitely evolved. Instead of focusing on compelling stories that would keep all readers coming back for more, various comic companies felt the need to prefer fan service. So I love that they dance around and they even admit their large male fan base that it would increase their sales. Yeah, because it did. Because it did. Boobs sold. Yeah, it really, really did. Part of the problem now is they all look like little boys. I'm sorry. Ask the creator of Lady Death how he has a career. Ask people why they ask me more about the Catwoman series when she was, built like a voluptuous model compared to the one where she looks like, a teenage boy. Just saying. Okay. Everyone wore armor instead of their normal costumes. Okay, fair enough. There was a phase. Batman's replacement with John Paul Valley is brought up here. Catwoman even had a suit. Fair enough. And the example is Daredevil. But let me just point out though, while that is true, they did have a lot more armor. A lot of them were trying to go for some like street consciousness, some different like how would this happen? How would that happen? They were very short lived. Like most of these things, like the John Paul Valley is very important to that story because in Nightfall, there's like a stripping away of that armor. So he's returned to be John Paul Valley again and no longer Batman. He has to become Azrael. And in Daredevil, it was almost out like reject. No one wants that. That suit was terrible. No one wanted the armor suits. So when they're quickly rejected, does that mean it's like a 90s trope? Anyway, I don't know. The anti-heroes portrayed more effective than traditional heroes. Okay, well, you don't get to have an anti-hero conversation where now we take villains and make them anti-heroes. So just because you don't like the fact that Wolverine and Punisher were massively popular, which by the way, we also need to include Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Hulk and Spider-Man were the top tier. Venom, Carnage came along a little bit. Yeah, Maximum Carnage, things like that on that side. And on DC side, of course, Lobo, things like that. But you don't get to pretend all that when we're watching story after story, trying to make the villains, we're trying to soften the blow or give them a sympathetic backstory. Like, no. Okay. So many characters had endless pouches for no reason. Sure, of course they did. You know why? Because of Rob Liefeld. That's it. Rob Liefeld sold 1 million books. And because of that, they thought, well, let's try this, let's try that. And there were all sorts of design decisions and things like that. Now, at least with Batman, he had a utility belt and they changed some of the designs and made it differently. But some of the other characters, it did look a little silly and it didn't last. Women characters were killed to raise the stakes. This is the famous fridging metaphor, like here. That's what we're getting. But it wasn't really just killing females. It was just basically killing characters. Like there was also like an idea of who could you kill off and get rid of. Well, you would have a girlfriend or something that would motivate the hero. The tragic of loss and things like that would matter. Okay, I don't know why that's a bad thing if it worked. They're giving credit to this writer is sucking up to Gail Simone, pointing out the repetitive, flawed storytelling because she talks about fridging and the need to replace rather than add more heroes. Again, you do not get to say that in modern, with the modern era the way it is. You're acting like these things went away and they're not still here. I called this video some people you should listen to. Sage. Sorry, man. Not interested. Not interested in listening to your opinion. You are so disconnected to the 90s and some of the timelines, and you also seem to be you have scales over your eyes of what's actually happening today because almost every single thing is not actually gone. Your entire premise is that these things are back. Like You're trying to twist and turn and navigate or whatever to try to make it seem like these are old, outdated things and they're gone, when in fact, none of that is actually true. So not everybody is an expert, even if they're writing for a comic book website. Not everybody knows what they're talking about. And I had earmarked this because I don't know. It bothers me because they want to pretend that they're experts and they can try to gatekeep. They can try to lecture you and tell you, and like things like Chromium covers. If you're sitting at home and you're reading that, you're like, well, but I actually like Chromium covers. Like, maybe something's wrong with me. And I'm like, no, Chromium covers were pretty cool. That's why they sold. Now, was it overdone? Sure. But in an age of like 17 variant covers and things like that, it's like, I have no reason to try to take any of this response to heart without any reflection on what's going on around them. So that's my take on it. Maybe you guys think I'm crazy or overly sensitive or whatever. I don't know. I don't care too much. I just want to know what your thoughts are. And I thought it was interesting to talk about and give you my perspective on why I thought this person is a complete waste of, space on the comic book conversation circle. So don't forget, it's time to chill.
All I do is chill.